This is baby backed ribs. Look at that beautiful red color. That is smoke all the way to the bone, and the bones are coming free from the meat. Nice and clean. This is the right way to do a rack of ribs. This is baby back ribs with an apricot glaze. Well, hello. Today I'm going to be making some back ribs. This is baby back ribs. A lot of people like to call them that, okay? It's just the back rib, folks. Now, if you want to get technical, a baby back rib would be from a suckling pig, and it is a much, much smaller rack of ribs. All right, so we're not going to get hung up on the details. These are racks of back ribs. Now that means it comes from the back of the animal, from where the spine is down to where the side starts. That's where they make that cut, and everything from there down is called the spare rib. So you got the spare rib, you got the back ribs, and you got a lot of delicious stuff. Today we're going to get into how to process those, how to remove that silver skin. I'm going to show you how to make a delicious fruit glaze for it. I'm going to be doing apricots. And I'm going to be adding in some spice with that. We're going to be putting in some chilies with that, some cumin, and spicing it right up. And that flavor is already going to be on the meat because I'm going to do a rub. We're going to smoke this meat. We're going to be using this stuff right here. Isn't that beautiful? This is mesquite wood. Mesquite. Oh, that is such a Texas flavor, and I absolutely love it. So we're going to be doing some mesquite wood to smoke this thing up just right in an offset smoker. These are smoked back ribs with an apricot glaze. It's going to be a bit of a spicy apricot glaze. This is fun. Let's take a look at the smoker. I'm going to show you everything you need to do. If you've never used a smoker before, this will be a good kickoff show for you. And if you're used to a smoker, well, who knows, you might pick up a tip or two on this one. So enjoy this video. This is going to be the most delicious ribs you've ever put in your mouth. Let's get started. Today, the ingredients simple enough. We've got these beautiful back ribs. I like a back rib for this reason. You have a lot thicker meat, all right? Much more meat packed onto a much shorter bone, which to me, that's a really nice package, and it plates up well, great for the holidays. Some back ribs, we're going to be making smoke. You got to have wood for good smoke. I'm using mesquite. It's a very Texas flavor. If you want to, you can go with pecan. That's a very East Texas flavor. If you would like, use hickory. Of course, pecan is a type of hickory tree. Oak is a very good wood to smoke with. That's what most charcoal is made from, oak. Okay, so great flavor with that. Also, we're going to be needing some salt, paprika, cumin, and some apricots. And back here, this little guy hiding, this is my cayenne. Now the cayenne is going to be used, if you would so desire, we're going to add about a quarter to half a teaspoon of that to the glaze to baste over these at the very end. And what that'll do is just give it a little bit of a bite, just that little bit of an edge against the tongue to contrast with the sweetness here and to just meld beautifully with the other spices that we're going to put on these. Before we can do anything though, we got to get fire going. That takes a little bit of time, usually about an hour, hour and a half to get it fully stabilized and smoking the right way. When I say stabilized, that's getting the smoker at the right temperature. Let's take a look and see how that's done. This is an offset smoker. Now, the reason it's an offset smoker is because the firebox right here is offset from the smoke chamber right here. This is a neat way to smoke. It's not the only kind of smoker. I'm not saying it's the best, but I am saying for me it works the best and it works really good. We keep our fire right down here in our firebox. This spot, you can also set these lower grills in there if you want to do direct on grilling like hamburgers and that type of stuff. So actually, when you're smoking, if you want to do some hot dogs in the middle of it or something, or hamburgers, this thing will handle that. On the firebox, we have a door on the side, and in the middle of that door, there's a little gate that allows air in. That's the damper. In the bottom, there's also a grate that helps to get airflow underneath that fire. It lights it up a little better. It takes time, though, to get this whole thing heated to the right temperature and running stable at the right temperature. And that's a matter of opening and closing that damper. The chimney over here should remain fully open the entire time that you smoke. There's a reason for that. We don't want a backlog of smoke in the smoke chamber. You're going to get more than enough smoke in here just from allowing it to pass straight through and come out that chimney. We also judge the color and quality of the smoke at the chimney, in addition to keeping the right temperature. Now, on the bottom of the smoke chamber here, I have some foil pans, and those are down there for a couple of reasons. You can put liquid in there to keep moisture in the air while it's smoking. This is good for the meat. Also, if you want, you can flavor your meat by what you put in those pans. Let's say you put a beer in there. That's going to affect the flavor of your meat. So if I choose to pour a beer into one of these or both, then I'm going to have meat that has a flavor that reflects some of that barley and some of the hops that is in that beer. So think of that. You can put different things in there to affect the flavor of what you're smoking. This is what we do, folks. Now, when we're smoking, we're also going to occasionally baste it with a little bit of oil, and that just keeps it from drying out. And it's the same as using a mop sauce. Let's get this thing up and going. I need to get a good fire going and then get it right down in here so that we can have barbecue. When you're going to be lighting your fire, and I want to caution you here, get out of the habit, please, of using lighter fluid. Use some paper, all right? Paper is not going to give any negative consequences. Now, you might be wondering, what do I mean by negative consequences? Well, here's the thing. The flavor of lighter fluid becomes imparted to the meat when the heat source becomes lit with that lighter fluid. It leaves the petroleum distillate, after it becomes vaporized, it leaves it on the inside of the smoker, and then in turn flavors and actually ruins flavor of the meat. Okay, so it affects the meat in a negative way. Please get out of the habit. I'm not worried about the environment or anything like that. That's not my concern here. My concern is making sure that you cook the best barbecue that you can possibly cook. And if your barbecue tastes like kerosene, then it's not going to be the best barbecue you can cook. Okay, so that's that. All right, when lighting this, you can light it sitting on a grill in there. I do it out here because I get better updraft flow underneath this. 2 sheets of newspaper is generally more than enough, generally. And from there, just light it up. And sometimes I will also use a torch in this lighting procedure, all right? And I find that very beneficial. The torch will do this very quickly, where my lighter can only do so much damage at a time. If you want, you can use the propane torch to directly light the charcoal itself. It'll take a little bit of extra propane, but it's not a big deal. It's a clean way to light that charcoal. All you have to do is get the bottom bricks to start burning. Once they begin to burn, everything else after that will go really smooth. Okay, look at it that way. So let's get those bottom bricks up and burning. When I see the top of this starting to turn white, that is when it's ready. And I'm going to forewarn you, this will get frighteningly hot. As the fire surges upwards through this chimney, it begins to light that charcoal very quickly. And in doing so, it also develops much more heat than it normally would if you had it as a pile being lit with a fluid. Okay, so don't do the fluid thing. Let's do this. This also needs to be watched carefully. Keep your eye on it. Keep an extinguisher handy when you're smoking. It's always a good thing to have an extinguisher around. That way you're prepared for problems. I've just got to be patient. This is now up and smoking. Now, the paper has burned off. The charcoal has lit on bottom. It is now heating up and lighting up throughout this chimney. So that's what we're seeing here. This is why the smoke is somewhat bluish in color, is because it is wood. Now, as this starts to get hotter, this blue smoke will dissipate and we're going to see more fire coming out of it. And we'll look at that in a minute. I'm going to mention that when you're handling one of these things, even though there's a heat shield here, this handle and this, they sometimes get very hot. In addition, when you're pouring it, the heat will come up off of it and can burn you, all right? So I want to recommend, please get yourself some gloves. Any kind of gloves will do. I recommend a leather glove, gardening glove, anything like that does good. Protect yourself when you pour. You're going to need some tongs, okay? Because we're going to be handling some of the fire, some of these charcoal bricks as they're lighting and when they're burning down in the fire pit. We use the longer tongs for that, and they're very handy. Okay, you can use those for the food as well, and I do both. Look at it this way, all we're doing is getting some fire on them. Being down in the fire pit is not going to hurt that tong. So here we are heating this up. Get your gloves ready. When it starts to ash on top, not fully, just starts to ash up, we know it's time to pour it down into our firebox. Remember those gloves? See, it's getting white on top. There's no smoke. It's just absolutely incredibly hot though. So let's get it down into the firebox. Sometimes I'll have an escape charcoal briquette or two. I just deal with those one at a time. Easy to do. Now this is nice because I can get my fire set up exactly the way I want it. And I want a good center burn. And around the outside, I'm going to take the wood that I have been soaking in water. And I'm going to place that wood right up on the metal, on the sides above that fire. What happens there is I get a slow smoldering action that way. That smoldering action helps me to get a more even smoke release, and as a result I get deeper smoke penetration to my meat and a better control overall. So I use charcoal for heat, I use the wood for the smoke, and I get a beautiful combination going on. When I'm doing this and I'm first heating this up, I want to heat my metal up. So I just give it plenty of air, close this, make sure the chimney is open, and give it time. It also gives me a moment to dust off all of my extra ash that I have here. This is not a big thing, but it is just a part of dealing with wood fire. You're going to have ash. That's all there is to it. This is the best way to make barbecue in my mind. Once I have my fire in the box, I do go ahead and add some extra charcoal. I do this because I want nice, fresh charcoal to get lit up right now. And that way I've got some extra burn time going on in here. Now, again, it's all about just getting it mounted up, positioned well, and that way I get good burn. And any escapes are easy to control. It comes time, you just got to open that package up, right? Okay, so watch what I'm doing. I take it right along the edge where I'm not going to cut into anything or hurt anything, okay? And just open those things right up. Now, when you open your wraps, if you've got yours like I do, which is, you know, like the Packer wrap, these things are going to have a lot of juice in them, all right? Plain and simple. You can't get around it. Be prepared, have plenty of paper towels ready to go, and that way you can unpack these and not be too messy about it. All right. Now the other thing we're going to do is take off this silver skin. I'm going to show you an easy way to get that off of there. All right, through the magic of super high-speed filming and of course of an assistant to my side. Thank you, by the way. That was all too easy. So, silver skin. What is silver skin? It's a fancy way of saying in the kitchen connective tissue, all right? This is a material that basically just kind of holds things together, keeps it all stable inside of whatever body we're talking about. There is a trick to getting this off, and it is not the use of a knife. It is through the use of this, the simple paper towel. Let me show you how this works. So what we want to do here, take a paper towel, get by the end. Now, the reason I use a paper towel, this gives you traction, okay? This stuff is slippery. It's really slick, and you need some way of grabbing a hold of it without your finger slipping loose. Grab the corner of the silver skin. Sometimes it's not loose, and you may need to use the knife to loosen just the edge. There we go. Once you get a hold of it, and part of it slipped loose, let me get the rest. There we go. That thing will simply lift right up and off of there. I'm getting some secondary there. That's all there is to it. This is what it is to remove a silver skin. Don't make this any harder than it looks right here, okay? Now sometimes you get to this meat, it doesn't hurt to just go ahead. That's when you pull out that knife, and a little meat sacrificed isn't going to do any real damage, okay? If you want to pull out any of that extra fat, you can do. I leave it in there just because that adds flavor as this thing is cooking. That's it right there. I have my silver skin stripped. This didn't require parboiling. It didn't require any of that ridiculous business that people do in the kitchen. All it takes is grabbing it with a paper towel and pulling the thing off of there. Any fat like this, depending on the fat, you can leave or pull. This fat, I'm just going to leave it there. It's not going to affect the cook on this at all, and it won't adversely affect smoke penetration, all right? These are going to be in the smoke long enough that the smoke will penetrate to the bone, literally. And what that's going to do, it's going to cause the meat to look red after the fact. This is going to turn red. It's going to look uncooked, but it will be fully cooked. That's sort of the thing about smoking. When you smoke, you're releasing nitrates and nitrites into the air around the meat. Those chemicals soak into the meat. They are preservatives. They preserve the myoglobin. The myoglobin is what makes the meat red. That is the red protein. Hemoglobin is the red protein in blood. Myoglobin, the red protein in red meat. A bit of salt. Aren't these a couple of beautiful racks? This is going to make such a wonderful holiday treat. Talk about something to put on the table besides a boring turkey. I know some of you are going to get mad at me for saying boring turkey, but guess what? I would rather do this for Thanksgiving or for Christmas than a turkey any day of the week. And that's what I'm doing. Just a moderate coating of my cumin. Now, I'm not completely covering it. I'm not going to rub it either. I'm just going to coat it, all right? And that's all it needs. This is the paprika. If you want to go a little heavier on paprika, feel free to do so. Some people ask me, are you using hot or using mild paprika? You know what? I just went to the store and bought a bottle that said paprika. I didn't get picky about it. It's not Hungarian smoked or anything like that. It's just plain, ordinary seasoning paprika. It has a mild heat, but it's not hot. Okay. Now, some places you're going to find two kinds of paprika. They'll say sweet and they'll say hot. And when you run into that, that's when you've got lots of choices. Go ahead and find one that you like using. And if you've got something in your cabinet that you're really fond of, well, use it. This is the idea here, is use those flavors you're accustomed to. Isn't this gorgeous? Now, some people will tell you, oh, you have to rub those ribs and massage them and make them all, you know, come on, get real. Just get the spice on there. It's going to do the job just fine. The smoker will do the rest of the work. These are nice and tender and ready to go. Just got to wait. Give it a little time. Now that my temperature is set up really good, it's at 225 in my smoke chamber, and it looks pretty stable. I want to take some of this wood that's been down here soaking in the water. All right, now why do I soak it in the water?
Well, I'm trying to keep it from just immediately erupting when it hits this heat. So I don't want it to kick off and burn too quickly. And this just slows down that burn rate. That's all it is, nothing more. Now, what I'm doing, I'm pushing these all the way up against those back sides, all right? We're gonna get a close-up view in there here in just a sec. Now you see here how I have my fire in the middle. It's a little over a foot in diameter. I have put my wood up on the sides of the fire box. That heats them up, but slowly, not directly on the fire. That way we don't get an immediate eruption from the wood burning too fast. I don't want it to burn too quick. Now I want to move this charcoal just a little bit, and you notice how it's getting cooked down. I'm going to add about another 12 charcoal bricks to this. That way, when I close the lid, it's going to start smoking, and it's going to be fantastic. Right now, the odor excuse me, not the odor, it's an aroma. This aroma is absolutely heavenly, and I guarantee you that when you start doing stuff like this, you're going to drive your neighbors crazy. Okay, I've added some extra charcoal in here. Now, there's two things that are going to be giving off smoke. When charcoal first lights, it gives off a little smoke. Also, that wood is going to be smoking, and that's going to be that flavor going on. Both of them are giving us flavor, but this mesquite is really going to stand out. This is something you want to get used to doing about every 30 to 45 minutes. Add 12 to 15 charcoal bricks and just keep it running smooth and easy this way. As these pieces of wood start cooking down and charring, I will add more on top of them, or on this side, or even over here near the damper. Remember, open or close that damper to keep your temperature right about 225, okay? It is time for me to get my meat in here, but I also want something to flavor it. Now, down inside of this, I want to put this beer. Now, this beer is going to be put in the drip pans down below that I recommend people put some sort of water or liquid in there so it will release into the atmosphere. This is kind of like, you know, you've heard of that beer can chicken? This is sort of like that. All right? So don't be afraid. Putting a little bit of beer down in your cans there, or in those trays, I should say. There it is. Let's get that meat in this. I want to start with the wider end, that thicker end, I should say, not wider. And it's going to be on this side, but not up against where the smoke comes through. Pull back about 6 inches, maybe more, about 6 to 8 inches. And that's where I have my drip trays pulled back. I have these pulled back to get even smoke circulation. You can put it closer, but generally things that cook over right in this area have a tendency to overcook. So make sure you rotate the meat as you do it if you put it close to this. Close that lid. Make sure the chimney is full open. Keep your temperature between 200 and 225. Every 30 to 45 minutes, add some fuel. Check your wood. Add that as needed. And smoke for, 5, maybe 6 hours. Good. We're going to have fabulous ribs. Give it time. Be patient. This is a slow cooking patience game. Now, folks, look at the smoke that's coming out of this. The color of it is very important. We're looking for smoke to be about blue in color. See how it's puffing a little? It's kind of bilging. That's a bit heavy. I don't want my smoke that heavy. However, it needs to be said that when you first put new charcoal or fresh wood into the smoker, you may get a little of this condition right here. I want that to be more wispy. The color is good. It's bluish. It could be a little more blue than it is now, and I will work to get it there. That's just a matter of controlling that fire. Make sure your temperature stays below 250, and if it rises above it, immediately open the smoke box door, cool the meat down. You want to do this to preserve the effect that you're getting with the smoking condition, getting that red band to penetrate deep. In this case, all the way to the bone. This right here is the exact quality that I want for my smoke. The color is blue. The condition is wispy. It's light. It isn't billowy or heavy,
All right, and that's exactly what makes for some of the best smoked barbecue you're ever going to have in your whole life. This is it, folks. This is the condition we look for. 225 degrees and light wispy smoke. As these are cooking, sometimes you need to just go in, add a little bit of oil, and it doesn't take a whole lot, folks. Just take a little bit of olive oil and gently coat it over the meat, okay? What this does is it just helps to keep that meat from drying out. Nothing more, nothing less. And you don't have to be super generous with this, but make sure that it covers the meat thoroughly. And I like to do this all the way around, both sides. And that way, as my meat is cooking, I get, well, let's just put it this way, I get a much more moist product in the end. These have been out here for quite some time, okay? And I keep occasionally about, once every hour and a half I'll come out, hit it with just a little bit of oil. It doesn't take much, it just locks in those juices. Now here's the thing, these have been smoked beautifully, all right? The color of the smoke, I am certain, runs almost all the way to the bone, if not completely to the bone, even in the thick areas. So what I'm going to do, give this about another hour out here as I begin my apricot glaze. As that is cooking down, I will then take these off of this heat, put it into another pan with about, a cup of water, just enough to keep moisture in there. And we will cook these off in the oven at about 325 degrees. That's where we get that barbecue thing. Now, in case you're thinking, why not just barbecue in this smoker and finish it off that way, raise the heat here? I could. However, I believe, and I have experienced, that the flavor of the smoke that's coming up right here changes as that temperature goes up. If it gets too hot, the smoke bitters, okay, and it'll bitter the outside of that meat. I've got perfect going on right now. I don't want to mess up perfect. So all I have to do is finish off in the oven until the meat finishes cooking throughout, until it pulls back on the bones, and it'll do that. Those bones on the bottom here, these will protrude from the meat, and the meat will pull back gently and easily from the bone. The bone will come out white. So that's what I need. And about 45 minutes to an hour of braising at 325. Hey, that's it right there. And really, actually, not even a braise. It's just a bake with a little steam going on. So I'll get started now. Let's go inside, get started on that apricot glaze. I have a lot of goodies out here right now, and I wanted to talk to you about different ways of turning these apricots right here into a wonderful glaze to put on meat. So one is a nice, sweet, apricot flavored spread that I can put over the meat and that can be baked into it and let it soak, and or excuse me, let it soak into that meat and set up and form a skin basically that's apricot flavored. And I'm going to spice it up a little bit with some chili spice and also some cumin. This will be really, really good, all right? However, there's a couple of ways of doing this. Now I've got a blender out here, but also, the good old-fashioned food mill. One of these things. Use the, where is it here? The medium-sized sieve. This one here. The medium-sized sieve is going to work well for making a puree with those apricots. So if you'd like to do a food mill, that's a great way. Today I'm going to be doing with a blender. I do occasionally like to mention different ways of doing this stuff. It allows folks that don't have maybe a blender but do have a food mill an option, another way of doing it. So what I want here is plenty of the juice, that syrup, and some of these apricots. Now let's take a look at this. And what I'm looking for is basically the quality of the frappe, okay? And it's very smooth, as you can see. That's quite liquidy. That's just what we need. This is perfect for our purpose. Now that we have our puree, look how smooth that is. Isn't that beautiful? All right. So this promises to make us a very, very good product. Now something I'm going to do with this, we're going to add a little spice to it, a little bit of flavor, not a whole lot. I want to take about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and that is all. And if you want to use some cumin in this, you can, because that's what we put on the meat also. However, I don't necessarily want the cumin in my glaze so much as I do this right here. Now I'm looking for about, let's see here, there we go, about 1/2 teaspoon on that paprika. Isn't that nice? And yes, this will influence the color. And then on this cayenne, remember this stuff is fiery hot. Do not use much of it. 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon, just like this. There we go. Get that worked in. And I'm going to let this cook down. Now as this cooks down into the glaze it'll become, it's going to change color. It's going to get darker. It won't be quite so pretty as it is now. However, the flavor is going to be magnificent. As soon as it starts bubbling, I'm going to lower the temperature on this to a simmer, cover it, and I want to cock the lid sideways on that so that it'll steam off. That's the whole idea, is I want this to get thick and syrupy, and when it is, that's when we're ready to use it. These are now off of the grill, and I have put these 2 racks in this one roasting pan. In the bottom there is a grate, what they call a pan rack, that raises them up. I put some water under them, about 2 cups. That's just to keep it moist as they're cooking. They're in the oven at 325, and it'll take about 45 minutes to an hour. When the bones are protruding, that's when I put the glaze on, and that's ready to go. Now, these into the oven. Our glaze, I just turned off the burner here, but look at this. Look how thick this has gotten. That is a gorgeous glaze, and that's exactly what we're looking for. This is going to coat the ribs really well. It's going to stick well, and when it is cooked onto them, it'll produce a nice skin that'll provide a slightly sweet, slightly tart coating that is slightly apricot with a little chili flavor. It'll come out fantastic. This just came out of the oven. I broke the meat a little bit here. The ribs are cooked well. Look at this. See how those bones are protruding here? That's what I was talking about. That's what we're looking for. And at this point, that's when we glaze it. The glazing doesn't take long. It'll set up on there in about 10 to 12, sometimes 15 minutes. Whenever you're doing the glaze, don't overcook them, okay? And that's the thing about barbecue sauce. Barbecue sauce can be used as a glaze, but you do it at the end of the cooking, all right? And let it just set up on it, and then it's ready to be cut and enjoyed. Look at that, isn't that nice? That right there is what I'm talking about. Beautiful, beautiful ribs. These are finished up. Look at that. When I said that it was going to pull free from the bone, that's what I'm talking about right there. Oh God, that tastes so good. That glaze mixed with the smoke. Oh, let me tell you. It's got this great balance between this sort of a acidic bite and sweetness. A good barbecue sauce does. You know, you're going to find that in a lot of them. And this one, it doesn't disappoint. Folks, thank you for watching this. If you would, take a look right under this, the description box. There's some links there to my channel, of course. You're going to find a lot of recipes and my website. That's where I sell those recipes. Hey, don't knock it until you look at them. We got some really nice stuff there. There's a lot of other stuff. Please take a look. Please enjoy your ribs. I'm going to. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.